Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I wasn't planning on making one, but you know what? I was just playing around with Sonar and reading FreightWaves articles, and something dawned on me, something that made me extremely hopeful for the future. So today I wanted to share it with you guys, give you some hopeful news for the weekend, and of course I want to hear your thoughts on it because there are going to be a lot of thoughts. Ready? Let's go! So let's talk about contract carriers. Now, a contract rate is a fixed price agreed upon by the carrier and the shipper to move the shipper's freight over a set period of time. And usually it's the same freight each time, sometimes even the same route each time. Now, usually these contract rates last from 6 months to a year, although I have been reading and hearing about the fact that shippers lately, over the past year, have been renegotiating their contracts more often as they try to save money on transportation. But the point is this: if a contract carrier, for example, of a dry van agreed on a contract rate in January of 2023, when the rates were on average $2.33 per mile, they are continuing, if the contract has not been void, they're continuing to earn that $2.33 per mile today. And that is regardless of the fact that as of right now, on the dry van spot market, the rates are averaging at around $1.98 per mile. In other words, contract carriers, or a lot of them, have been more or less shielded from the horrors of the trucking industry or the free market in the trucking industry. And we have seen over the past few weeks that on average, contract carriers earn 75 cents more than those spot carriers. Now, spot carriers, on the other hand, like myself, we are forced to change with the daily market, and it changes every day. So if today a rate on the spot market for a dry van is $1.98 per mile, this is what the spot carrier earns more or less. After negotiations, it might be more, but this is more or less what it is. If tomorrow the average rate drops to $1.50 per mile, yep, the spot carrier is stuck with that rate. Now, the contract market always follows the spot market, but with a delay. And there's a historical pattern that happens. As the spot market goes to crap, of course, shippers are more likely to start renegotiating their contract rates in order to save some money. No one wants to pay more than they have to, right? So what is happening right now? Well, because it's the end of the year, this is the big time for requests for proposals, where basically shippers are renegotiating a lot of their contract. And this usually lasts into Q1 of the following year. And of course, seeing as the spot market is in shambles right now, shippers who are business people, they're going to try and monetize on these horrible rates by pushing for lower contract rates. So now I'm going to attach a chart here and I'll explain it in a minute. For the longest time, we have seen that the spread between contract carriers and spot carriers is 75 cents more or less, give or take a few cents. Basically, contract carriers were constantly earning about 75 cents more per mile than those spot carriers until now. So this chart, as you can see, the blue line, this is us in 2023. The green line is 2022. And what we can see is not currently, it's actually as of the end of November, contract carriers are not earning 75 cents more than spot carriers. They're actually earning 66 cents more than spot carriers. That's not the kicker. The kicker, if you look at this chart, is that at the end of 2022, contract carriers were also earning around 66 cents per mile more than spot carriers. Why is this important? Well, because towards the end of the year, as rates get renegotiated, that spread between contract and spot gets much, much smaller. And seeing as we are already, as of the end of November, at the same spread as at the end of December last year, we can expect that contract carriers are going to see even bigger rate cuts by the end of this year. Okay, so why do spot carriers even care or pay attention to what contract carriers earn? Well, the answer is really simple, and it consists of two things. capacity and tender rejections. We have seen that capacity is trickling out of the market, but it's not enough to make an actual dent in the situation. Partially, the reason for this is because, as I said, contract carriers have been more or less shielded from the craziness that is happening in the free market, for example. However, considering the fact that contract rates are getting renegotiated and they are going to get closer and closer to the spot market rates, not quite there, but closer and closer, and there's going to be that rate cut, we might start seeing more carriers on the contract side start downsizing and even exiting the market altogether. Now, the second part of it is, of course, tender rejections, which goes hand in hand with the capacity issue. Even though there is a contract between the contract carrier and the shipper to haul a particular amount of freight over a particular amount of time, it is not as legally binding as it sounds, so that carrier can actually refuse to haul those contract loads once in a while, often, whatnot. So many times a carrier will be under this agreement, but then will see a better alternative on the spot market and might refuse to haul a particular load for that shipper. Or maybe some of their trucks are tied up on other loads, so they don't have enough capacity, so they refuse to haul that load for that shipper. And when that happens, those tender rejections, as we call them, those loads that are refused from, they end up trickling down to the spot market, therefore increasing spot market volumes. So let's go back to the point I was making. As contract carriers start feeling more pressure from the current market because their rates are starting to get renegotiated, as I said, some of them will start downsizing, others will leave the industry altogether. And what does that mean? That means lack of capacity and an increased level of tender rejection, therefore more spot volumes. As that starts to happen, all of a sudden the load to truck ratio on the spot market starts to tip. All of a sudden there are more loads than there are trucks. All of a sudden brokers and shippers have to entice carriers to actually move their particular load. And how do they do that? They start increasing prices. As that happens, spot rates start climbing up, and those contract carriers who just had their rates renegotiated and their lower rates, they start seeing that on the spot market there are better rates. So they start rejecting the contract loads, therefore increasing volume on the spot market even more. And of course, as volume increases on the spot market, so do rates. Until, of course, everybody and their grandmother start seeing that, oh my God, you can make so much money in trucking. Let's get in, let's do it. And then the whole overcapacity thing happens again and the rates start getting pushed down because there are too many trucks and too few loads. So my point is this is a normal cycle in the trucking industry, right? And it actually started happening already as we saw contract carriers are starting to earn less and less. The question is, how long will this process take? I have no idea. But yeah, something to ponder and think about. Anyway, guys, just wanted to share with you some more or less hopeful news right before the weekend. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of disagreements on the points I have made. Please feel free to comment them down below, whether it's an agreement or a disagreement. Just keep it professional. We learn from each other when we disagree, right? Wishing you all a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.